to the Popish Plot. I'm Mike. It's Witness Wednesday, and today is the story of my life. At least the first part of it. St. Paul VI said, and here I'm paraphrasing, because I didn't bother to do the research to have the precise quote in front of me, that in these days, men are more willing to listen to teachers if they are witnesses, and they'll listen to teachers to the extent that they witness. So, our purpose here on the Popish Plot is principally to entertain, to amuse, to show the joy of living a gospel life. But we also want to impart knowledge. And so, if we're going to do that, I think it's only fair that you know a little bit about where we're coming from. So, I was born in the first year of the pontificate of St. John Paul II. I was baptized at a little over 2 months of age. I was baptized a Catholic. My mother is a Cradle Catholic. My father was baptized as a Presbyterian, but has not practiced since he was a boy. I was raised in the parish that I currently attend. It is in many ways truly my home. But for many, many years, I did not contribute to or really participate in the life of my home. So, in the house I grew up in, let me just at the offset say that I had a very idyllic childhood. I had everything a boy could want. I was a very happy child. But the one thing I didn't have was faith. In my household, we prayed grace before meals maybe 3 times a year. On Easter Sunday, on Thanksgiving, and on Christmas Day. The rest of the year, we didn't so much as say grace. We were never made to say our prayers before going to bed. Yes, Mom took us to Mass most Sundays, and yes, she sent us to religious ed. But that was the extent of our religious education. Now, I don't say this in any way to condemn my sainted mother. But it was not a household where one felt the faith. It was not a household where one was taught to really live the faith. I've now come to learn that the church teaches very clearly that every home is a domestic church, and that as valuable as directors of religious education and catechists are, the parents must be the primary catechists of their children. So I beseech you, treasured viewers, be the primary catechists of your children. So, going through my youth, I was aware of the sacraments of the church, but I had no understanding of what they were. I thought of them simply as milestones on the road to growing up. So, I duly went through my first, I was baptized as an infant. I made my first confession. I began to receive the Lord in the Eucharist. That was one of the very rare days that I've ever seen my father in church, when each of his kids received their first communion. And it was a puzzle to me as a child. And I would ask, why do we have to get up and go to church when Dad gets to stay in his pajamas watching TV? And there was no real satisfactory answer. My brother and I, we really liked the commercials during the Super Bowl. And so, some years, when we would beg our mother, could we not go to religious ed just this one Sunday? I mean, come on, it's one day, what's it gonna matter? And we were allowed to skip religious education, CCD back in those days, for the Super Bowl. And this imparted to me the lesson that, well, I would never be allowed to miss real school for a football game. So clearly, church school is far less important than real school. And it was in this background that I began to prepare for my confirmation. Now, I didn't really want to be confirmed, but I had no objection to being confirmed. As in my view, it was simply what one was supposed to do. It was the next milestone. in growing up in the church. So, I did what I was supposed to do. I continued to go to religious education, volunteer hours. I went to the first retreat I've ever been to. And so we spent a Saturday in the church gym. And I remember very little of the day, except that I spent it principally with a kid from my school who I didn't really know, but I knew better than most of the other kids. And so that was the only day that he and I really socialized in our whole lives. He was one of those kids who had a sweet mustache, even in middle school. Yeah. So, at one point, towards the end of the day, Father offered us an opportunity. We could ask any question we wanted. Now, I thought myself a great wit. I was an incredibly arrogant kid. I got really good grades, and I was supremely confident in my own intellectual superiority because, I was an idiot. So I thought myself, this is an opportunity. I am going to pull a great gag. I didn't really have a specific purpose in mind. To this day, I still don't know what I really intended to achieve. But I wrote down my question. I folded the 3x5 card in half and I put it into the bucket. And Father, bless his heart, he didn't filter the questions. He pulled them out of the bucket and he read them aloud. He didn't screen them first and then decide which ones he was going to answer. And so he got to my question. And as he read it, his voice faltered a little bit. And that's when I knew that something was wrong. And my heart began to sink. But Father read the question aloud. Does God exist? And he didn't get mad. He didn't say, who dares to ask this? He simply said, with a great deal of pain on his face, that anyone who would ask such a question, who was asking that question earnestly, should really consider whether they should be confirmed. And what I had thought would, somehow be some kind of triumph, would be a great laugh, a deathly silence settled over the entire room. And I knew that I had done wrong. So, as confirmation approached, I had asked myself, did I believe in God? And I had to reach the conclusion, I wasn't sure. So, for the first time in my life, I had to face the fact that I didn't know if God existed. I'd never given it any serious thought before. I'd always gone to church and I'd said the words. I could go through the Mass in my sleep. But I didn't know God. As I came to understand, I was a walking, talking stereotype. I thought myself so individual, so unique. I was the archetypal Catholic who had been sacramentalized, but never evangelized. And this should have given me pause, but it didn't. Because one got confirmed. It was what was expected. So even though I didn't believe in God, well, I didn't actively disbelieve in him either. So I'll go ahead with it. Yeah? And to let you know how seriously I took this preparation process, my confirmation saint is Michael. It's like I wasn't even trying. Oh, because I wasn't. So, confirmation approached, and I was an agnostic. And the day arrived, and we were all there, and the bishop was there, and it was a longer than normal Mass, and nothing seemed unusual. And then the oil was put on my forehead and my hands. And the bishop touched my shoulder. And at that moment, I was struck with lightning. I had never before in my life experienced anything like it. All of a sudden, I felt this incredible power surging through me. I had no idea that any such thing existed. But in that moment, without being able to put words to it, I was touched by the finger of God. And from that moment until this, I have never had a moment of doubt of God's existence. I've doubted myself, I've doubted my salvation, I've doubted his church, but never once did I doubt that God is real. So the boy who had grown up in an almost religiously indifferent household, who was not properly disposed to receive the grace of the sacrament, was handed a big old helping of the Holy Spirit. So the question is, what would I do with him now that I'd received him? Tune in next Wednesday, as Witness Wednesdays will continue. Until tomorrow, when we'll be bringing you another fantastic vLent episode, like, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified. And don't forget to live your faith, love your faith, share that love.
The Witness Wednesdays will continue until the morale improves. Witness Wednesdays will continue until subscribership increases.